The film begins with a surreal and fragmented montage of scenes with a variety of characters and situations. The first part is an interview between a seasoned journalist named Diane and a charismatic spiritual leader LaRouche. The backdrop is a serene sun-drenched landscape, but the conversation is tense. Diane challenges LaRouche on the accusations swirling around his organization, which a former member Vicky Kelly had labeled a cult. Kelly's viral videos alleged brainwashing, polygamy, and even gun running. LaRouche, however, remains calm and collected, deflecting her questions with philosophical musings about destiny and free will. He claims his followers are on a journey of self-discovery, not forced subservience. He goes on to speak of a coming ascension, a moment when they will be imbued with celestial power and gain immortality, holding the door open for a new age. Suddenly the idyllic scene is shattered by the distant sharp sound of gunshots, a stark contrast to his triumphant pronouncements of peace and eternal life. The narrative abruptly shifts to a completely different setting, a dimly lit, messy room where two young men, Benny and Ian, are preparing for a ritual. The mood is a mix of high-stakes occultism and comical ineptitude. Benny, the more serious of the two, is frustrated with his bumbling friend Ian, who has brought scented white snickerdoodle candles instead of the required black ones. Benny is attempting to summon Asmodeus, a powerful demon he believes will bring about the end of the world. He promises Ian that by doing so they will be rewarded with eternal life and fame in the circles of hell, with the power to have anything they desire, including money and women. Ian is mostly in it for the promise of honey dips, as he calls them. As they pore over an old grimoire, they realize they need the blood of a virgin as a sacrifice. Ian, in a moment of honest panic, confesses he isn't a virgin, humorously citing an old high school lunch lady as his conquest. Exasperated, Benny cuts his own arm, offering his blood to the demon. He completes the incantation, but nothing happens immediately. Benny is furious, convinced Diane's scented candles have ruined everything. A knock at the door interrupts their argument, and to their astonishment, the demon Asmodeus appears. He notes with a chuckle that he loves the smell of snickerdoodles, signaling that the ritual, despite their mistakes, was a success. Another storyline unfolds, centered on a cynical television reporter Corinne and her long-suffering cameraman Tim. They are stuck covering a series of trivial local news stories, their latest being a peewee soccer game. Corinne is visibly disgusted by her assignment, muttering about bullshit puff pieces and lamenting her stagnant career. She is hungry for a big story, something with real substance, remembering a time when they covered bank robberies and major crimes. Tim tries to keep her grounded, reminding her of her past unprofessional antics, such as suggesting a robbery would have made better TV if someone had been shot. She even gets a nickname, G, which Tim explains stands for two guns, as in coming into every situation with both guns blazing. Their mundane assignment is abruptly interrupted by an emergency broadcast blaring on their equipment. The sounds of sirens and general chaos fill the air, and Tim panics, realizing they are still live on air. The unfolding events are no longer a distant news report, they are happening right outside their van. Corinne, in her element, sees this as the opportunity. She's been waiting for, the big story she always wanted. She grabs her gear, ready to dive headfirst into the unfolding chaos, while a terrified Tim begs her to reconsider. The final and most intense storyline follows a man named Hunter, a prepper and survivalist who has been meticulously planning for the end of the world. He is documenting his journey on a video camera, narrating his every move with the cold, measured tone of a man who has anticipated this moment for years. He advises his viewers to pack light and stay low, emphasizing that movement is life. He shows off his only tool, a simple knife, which he believes is all that is needed for survival. He is on his way to meet his friend Nick at a pre-arranged location, a school. He drives on back roads to avoid the growing panic and traffic, then abandons his car to proceed on foot. He is unnerved by the lack of cell service and the constant blare of emergency alarms. Upon reaching the school, he finds it eerily empty. He tries to contact Nick on a walkie-talkie but gets no response. He begins to feel a growing sense of dread and decides to leave. As he's about to head out, a young girl, hysterical and panicked, bursts in. She's terrified, claiming they are after her. Hunter tries to calm her down, but before he can get a clear answer, a terrifying inhuman hiss echoes through the building. A figure lunges out of the shadows and a violent struggle ensues. Hunter fights them off, and his walkie-talkie suddenly crackles with a garbled message from Nick telling him to abort their plan and fall back to another location, a Bravo point. The transmission cuts out as Hunter and the girl fight for their lives. The screen goes black, leaving the audience to wonder what will become of the different characters and their disparate stories in a world that has finally and cataclysmically changed. Tim attempts to convince his colleague Corinne not to rush into the chaos surrounding the LaRouche Center. He argues that her aggressive, two guns blazing approach will only get them fired, but Corinne isn't backing down. She reveals she has leverage over their boss Bill because she witnessed him with an intern named Daniel at a Christmas party. Tim, flustered, admits it wasn't an intern but a male intern, Daniel, which leaves Corinne laughing and calling it classic. Corinne receives a video message from her sister Melody, an ATF agent. Melody sounds distraught and exhausted, leaving a panicked farewell message. She regrets having had a baby and mentions that she won't survive until morning. She tells Corinne that her remains are at the LaRouche Center and that their parents will need to bury her, with a sense of fatalistic finality. Tim catches up with Corinne, who is determined to go to the center. They bicker about getting the story and streaming the unfolding events online. Corinne justifies her need to be at the LaRouche Center by explaining that Melody's message indicated she hasn't been in contact with the ATF for days, giving them a perfect opportunity to be the first ones on the scene. The movie cuts to a couple, Alex and Theo, who have taken shelter in an abandoned building after fleeing the city. Theo wants to keep moving, but Alex, exhausted and overwhelmed, wants to rest. She reveals she has a surprise for Theo, a radio which they hope will provide some information. They find out the power grid is down, and while looking for batteries, Theo discovers a shocking secret. Alex is sick, though she claims it is not the same illness as them. The radio crackles to life, broadcasting an emergency alert from the government about a ballistic containment response. Theo is heartbroken, and Alex, realizing her impending death, tries to get Theo to leave her behind, but Theo refuses to abandon her. As they hold each other, they speak of the child they were supposed to have, deciding to name her Evelyn. A plane flies overhead and they realize the end is imminent. The film returns to Corinne and Tim as they drive toward the LaRouche Center. Tim's phone connects to the van's Bluetooth and they hear a radio broadcast from a man named Hunter, a survivalist who is leaving town and advising others to do the same. He says that he and his team have been preparing for this for years. A police officer on the radio, Rocky Michaels, says he wants to protect the people in his city, but Hunter warns him not to trust anyone and to get out of town. In a dark, a young woman is barricaded in a room filming a video diary. She explains that her grandmother has been getting sicker since her grandfather died and that her grandmother has been acting strangely. She has locked her grandmother in a room for her own protection, but her grandmother can be heard on the other side of the door growling and threatening her. The power goes out, leaving her alone in the dark. The young woman listens to Hunter's radio broadcast, which is also being broadcast in the abandoned building with Alex and Theo. The young woman, hearing that there is help in Reno, tries to call her boyfriend and then her parents, but she cannot get through. She listens in terror as her grandmother continues to try to break through the door, eventually succeeding. The young woman runs, trying to escape from the increasingly monstrous grandmother. Corinne and Tim arrive at the LaRouche Center and use their cameras to capture the scene. They witness horrific acts of violence as people seemingly turned into crazed monsters attack each other and the cult members. They hear gunshots and explosions. They see a man who has written "Forgive me" on the wall, and they discover he's a part of a much larger scheme. Tim and Corinne fight to survive and find Corinne's sister Melody. When they find Melody, she's badly injured and tells them that the ATF had a plan, a contingency, and that everything was a part of a larger scheme. She apologizes to Corinne for her role in the plan, saying she was suicidal and agreed to help because the ATF needed her. As they try to escape, Tim and Corinne are attacked by the monsters. Melody reveals she has a gun and must follow through with the plan. She tells Corinne, "I have to do this," just before a large explosion rocks the ground, and the film ends with Corinne crying and looking on as her sister detonates a device, seemingly ending her own life to stop the outbreak. The final radio broadcast from Officer Rocky Michaels and Hunter gives a sense of hope, but the movie concludes with a somber and ambiguous tone, leaving the viewer to wonder about the fate of the remaining characters. If you enjoy watching this video, then subscribe to Angel Recaps for the latest movies explanation.